Hey guys, we are making your background today for the spring animals. So hopefully you had time to cut it out and put it aside and keep it somewhere safe until we are ready to glue it on top of your background. So for our background, we are making it floral. I've worn my flowers today in inspiration for what we are about to do. I pulled out two different kinds of paper because I'm going to show you two different techniques. Any of your thick paper in your kit will work. You've got the thicker textured paper, that's watercolor paper, and you've got that thick tag board paper. The tag board I'm going to use with markers, the watercolor I'm going to use with straight watercolor, okay? You get to choose whichever method you want. You could even do a combination of both if you really, really want to. I really actually like the marker technique. I think it creates a cool effect, but if you really love to paint and you want to do paint the whole time, that's totally fine too. So how do we start? We're going to start with the marker technique and then I'll show you the watercolor. So for the marker technique, you do need to make sure you're using washable markers. Remember, washable doesn't have to say washable. It just needs to not be a permanent marker like a Sharpie, okay? So then I'm going to pull out my green values. So when I think of plants, the first thing I think of is green. All those greens that are in the ground and all the leaves. And then I'm going to grab some colors for flowers as well. I've got lots of different kinds of markers, so I'll pull out a bunch. Let's see. All right, and then I'm going to put these on the ground to give myself some more space. Looking for some more reds and pinks. Maybe oranges. All right. So it looks like I've got plenty to choose from. I just want to make sure I gave myself as much room as I could. I'm going to move my watercolor paper over. All right, so on my tag board, the first thing I'm going to do is kind of think about what do I want it to look like? I want it to look almost kind of like my shirt where there's just kind of flowers everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason. We're not making a ground or anything like that. So I'm actually going to do the stems and all the green values last. I'm going to do the flowers first. Okay, so you could make a tulip by kind of creating U shapes and kind of playing with the idea of those petals. So I can make a red tulip and color it in nicely. So these flowers are not ultra realistic, but they have the right kind of shape and design to them. And then maybe I'm going to do like a wider tulip. It's a little bit more open. And then, you know, some tulips are different colors. So some of them have like stripes of other color built into them. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. And then I'll go back in and color kind of around that yellow. Like so. All right, and then I'm going to make, let's see, I'm going to make a, I picked a dead marker. Make sure you're using those juicy markers. There, that's better. So I'm going to make more of like a daisy-like flower. Notice that I'm not using pencil at all. I'm going straight marker. So like if you make a mistake, kind of like I did a couple times, it's totally fine. And I'm going to fill in that center part with some yellow and I might even throw some polka dots of orange in there just to give it a little bit more texture. All right, and now I'll go back and finish coloring it in. Notice that I'm not even taking the time to really color it in super nice. You're going to want to take a little bit more time than I am, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because of what effect we're going to do to it next. And I've got lots of reds and pinks going on, so I'm going to break it up with some blues. And I'm thinking about, you know, those kind of grape hyacinths and stuff that kind of pop up in the yard. And they've got more like they almost look like blue pine cones or little tiny grapes. So I'm going to do a couple sets of those. But they are your flowers, so you do what you want to do with your project. Maybe you can find some inspiration from flowers that are already in your yard. That would be awesome. All right, what am I missing? Let me see. Let's go with I'm going to do more of like pansy shaped leaves or poppies. I really like poppies. And then they usually have some kind of darker sections in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and make some. All right, so I'm going to fill in as much as I can here. And I'm leaving these little voids because I'm going to grab my black in a second. I didn't grab a black. Okay, let me see if I can find a black here. Oh, there's one. All right. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of yellow in the center. All right. Now, I'm kind of avoiding the middle because I know that my animal is going to go in the middle, and I don't want to do some crazy detailed beautiful flower in the middle and just to have it covered up. So I'm not so worried about the middle as much. I do think I'm going to balance out my blue and do some more grape action up here. I grabbed the bad blue again. There we go. All right, and then maybe I'll throw in a little purple there because they kind of come in a different color. All right, so now is when I'm going to add my greenery and my greens and all my stems. So I'm going to kind of play with thicknesses a little bit. Change up the colors. You can add some leaves. Make sure you're thinking about underlaps and overlaps. So I made this tulip kind of go behind that poppy. I'll do the same thing over this way. And then tulips kind of have big leaves on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And I'm going to mix this with a secondary green color. Just to make it a little bit different. And let's see. Same thing over here with my other tulip. So tulips have some bigger, broader leaves. Again, I'm adding some accents with some other greens just to change it up a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and add just some kind of green around the sides just to kind of do like almost like little sprigs of grass. So I'm just filling in a little bit, giving some texture, not leaving as much white space. Okay, So we have talked for a while as you've watched me do this. So I want to show you what happens next. So I'm going to kind of clear off my paper because I might make a little bit of a mess, get rid of my markers. So we're just focusing on this paper. Now, what you can do is you can take water and your paintbrush, and you're basically going to wet your marker and paint kind of around your plants and on your plants. What it does, and you do have to be careful because colors will mix. So I'm kind of almost creating like a halo of pink around this big flower. So I'm going to do all my flowers first. So we talked about that yellow in there, and now it's going to kind of mix, which I really love. So because the markers are washable, we basically have created this soft watercolor effect using markers and just some water. So it's a really cool trick to do at home. If you don't happen to have a watercolor set at home, besides obviously your school set, you can do this and get a completely different effect, but also similar at the same time. Markers are a little easier to control than watercolors. So I have to be careful with this black here. I don't want it to bleed too much into the poppy. And I'm going to go right over these hyacinths, kind of rub them, fill up that blue area a little bit more. Same thing up here. And I'm kind of letting my brush strokes sort of do their own thing. And now I'm going to go back over my greens. Now I was careful about not going over my greens right away because my flowers are red, and red and green can equal brown. So you do have to be cautious to not let the colors totally mix right off the bat, and not to use too much water. And it's actually why I'm not using watercolor paper, because this tag board is soaking up the water really quickly, which means this is the first time I've had to deal with a little bit of a bleed there. But again, I'm not super worried about the middle because I know that my animal is going to cover it up. So I'm just going to kind of softly go over all my grassy sections. And I'm still using the same idea of like, the way I colored is the way I'm painting. I'm not changing my brush strokes to go in a different direction, because that would be sort of silly to have sideways grass and things like that. All right, so I think I've hit about everything. Okay, so you can see that it definitely changed. I almost should have taken a picture of the before and after. Shoot, that's my fault, but that's okay. So, we're almost done. There's one more piece to this that I'm going to let you play with and decide if you want to do, but I do want to show you kind of what it looks like when you do it. So look, that's going to look really cool, right? And then I could decide like, oh, do I need a little bit more color? Oh, well, I could kind of try to spread out this pink a little bit more, or I could go back and add another piece, flower with markers after it dries. But you definitely want to let this dry completely before you try to do anything else to it. Okay, keep your animal far away from it so it doesn't get wet or accidentally get some color on it. And I hope you're super proud of this. I am going to do a different video for the watercolor, so check that one out if you want to do the watercolor version.